нас очень необычное мероприятие. У нас финал всероссийского конкурса студентов-школьников по направлению кибербезопасность. В рамках этого конкурса, можно сказать, лучшие ребята писали код, сабмитили на гид, а потом к этому подключался экспертный комитет, выбирал лучшие работы, и несколько из них, которые относятся к кибербезопасности, были отобраны жюри для того, чтобы быть представлены на Positive Hack Days прямо сейчас. Мне кажется, это очень круто, что
So I believe it's very cool that the huge event is being opened by young guys
в таком формате. Не
who are perhaps making their first presentation in this format. Don't worry. My name is Sergey Gordichik. I'm General Director at CyberOp. It's a co-organizer of PhD
Ну, в прошлом.
in the past.
Как я передам слово
And before I pass the floor to our participants, I'd like to say a few words about the contest as such, how it was held, how it was built, if somebody would like to take part in it in the future, so they could make this choice consciously and happily. So the contest is based on, it has been founded by the National Technical Initiative community. I'm sure you all know what youngsters communities are all about. I myself, when I was a young guy, I went to a little community. I was part of a little community learning things. It was part of the Soviet heritage. So the contest has been run for 2 years now. And as part of this contest, it's either teams or individual participants can present their open project, published in one of the repositories, so that, firstly, they could be discussed by the community, and secondly, so that they could be evaluated by the professional jury. And based on the results, the winners get prizes, invitations for internships, and school kids can get additional credits for the exams. This year, the contest was run on 4 directions. First direction, creators. So when you have fully written your project from scratch, or became part of a team that has been working on a large project and present it as a new release. And second direction was contributors. So this applies to a situation where there's a long-term running project and you made a contribution. So big project. So you make some considerable contribution to it. It's also evaluated, especially if it went upstream. And then again, the winners are chosen. So for the first time this year, we had the implementation track. It's when you take an open source project and just do simple engineering work to implement this in a university, for instance, or as part of some other project. So it's more of a DevOps kind of activity for DevOps engineers. And there's an additional track, a community of special projects. This is more like a social movement to get new participants involved, to do training and some other things. So it's clear that open source community is in many ways about communication, about networking, and without people communicating, making things happen together, open source just wouldn't work. Organizers. The organizers track can be split into 3 parts. First, it's the organization committee. This includes different ministries and agencies. It's been supported by the Ministry of Digital Development, universities such as Moscow State University, Higher School of Economics. The second part is an expert council. The expert council is composed of the invited representatives of commercial companies and universities. In particular, particular, I was part of this expert council. Alexander Popov from Positive Technologies was also part of it. So when projects arrived, we reviewed them, ticked the boxes, sometimes had a laugh, sometimes had a weep. So the operator of this contest is this association of creative circles that I mentioned in the beginning, creative communities. More than that, it's not so much for the participants, but for those who would like to help this activity. There's a partnership direction. This includes the security aspect. Is supported by Positive Technologies and CyberOps, and you can consider taking part for the next year. You'll get access to the database of those who have contributed, who have sent in their projects. You can give them feedback, you can offer them internship, or you can invite them to present their work at a PhD. So there's a website. If you have an interest, you're welcome to check it out. Another thing, I will perhaps skip it, leaving only the numbers. This year, more than 200 projects from 43 regions in Russia took part. As a result, the expert council selected 22 winners for the whole of the 4 tracks. So basically, it's quite a lot of work to review 200 projects. But again, it's quite interesting. It's quite exciting. Another direction that's being studied right now, and I think it's of a lot of interest to students. Even though last year, school graduates also came to us knocking on the door. For instance, we had 2 guys, 17 years old. They now work in our company after the test internship. This is the internship called Entry for Everyone. It's a paid program for developers and engineers who are prepared to get involved in an open source project. So how does it work? There are several partners, for instance, Yandex, ourselves, who make their tasks available. So potential participants either send a CV or a motivation letter explaining why they would like to do that to one of the tracks, after which group interviews happen and the finalists are being selected. After that, a standard internship thing happens, either for 2 or 3 months, depending on a partner. The person is invited for a job. If they work well, they're being paid, and then a certificate of internship is issued to them. As I said, it's quite interesting for the young guys to become part of real work, to become part of a real working team, and do some real work rather than a student project. Now, a program has been announced with a QR. There's going to be a QR code shown. As you see, the areas are quite different from developing the Yandex DB. It's a big project that's recently been launched to others. These are the partners of the project. The Education of the Future, by the way, is an initiative to develop different educational complexes. You can actually try and join any of the directions. And so this is the QR code. If you are interested, so you're welcome. Get involved, get registered, send in your resume, CV, and perhaps in a couple of weeks you'll become an intern in Yandex, CyberOps, or another company that supports this activity. A few words about the finals. The expert jury has selected 4 projects that we believe to be the most promising. It's a good tool for web hackers who brute force parameters. And basically, it's something that any web hacker needs. There are a lot of similar utilities, but this one seemed to us the most promising. An execution environment for security, also another exciting area of activities addressing one of the basic Linux elements. And so the fact that the person has taken courage to do something on their own, it already attracts respect. Parser, RTTI parser. It's actually quite an interesting area of activity. And Repulsor is an implementation of an SMB-based remote management utility. Again, showing some interesting hacker techniques that in the long term can be analyzed and replicated. Unfortunately, not all the participants were able to join us today because the geography of the contest involves 43 regions of Russia. But we will try to pass our prizes and certificates and diplomas to all of them, and we're hoping that they'll continue their work. With this, I'd like to wrap up and pass the floor to the first participant.
Раз.
Once.
Я буду рассказывать об инструменте.
I'll be talking about a tool to search for parameters in the apps. A few words. My name is Alexander Mironov, junior specialist of the analytics groups, positive technology. I took part in the Bug Bounty, CTF. So let's start with a talk about web app parameters. These are the data that are being sent to users and that are being used by the server. Let's consider two examples. The first example shows get parameters lang equals n, that's passed to euro. And the second example involves parameters sending in the body of a request in the JSON format. So why is the search for parameters important? Discovering additional parameters allows us to the vulnerabilities. For instance, you can find functionality that's been left in the testing, or even discover the functionality that hasn't been asked for the developers to develop. The high accuracy is achieved through a line-by-line comparison between pages, statuses, response statuses, and the way the parameters are reflected in the page. Let's consider similar products. There are only two of them. There's Arjun and Paraminer. Arjun is a standalone tool written in Python, and Paraminder is an extension for Burp Suite written in Java. So the principle of all these tools is the same. So you send a list of parameters in a request, and if the answer of the server, the reply of the server is somewhat different, the list of the parameters is reduced until only one parameter remains that changes the reply. Let's consider each tool separate. For instance, Arjun, why it doesn't work and why it's not a good idea to use it. Firstly, it misses most parameters if the page is dynamic through incomplete checks. Also, it has a small list of supported methods: get, post, XML, JSON headers. For instance, you can't send JSON with a put method. You can only send them with a post method. Also, errors are processed incorrectly. It quite often happens that in the middle or at the end, when you launch the utility, it would stop with an error. For instance, if it doesn't like the status code of the page, or the utility has believed that the page has become stable. And apart from that, the worst thing is that with new versions, updates, the situation is getting even better. Let's consider Paraminer. Firstly, it's not linked to Burp Suite. It's a lighter algorithm that allows finding parameters faster. It has more space for customization, and it processes dynamic pages better. So what makes X8 unique? The pattern concept allows adjusting the tool for any way of the
На примере.
parameter setting. Consider it an example. Here, percentage S is a replacement point. So where the parameters are being replaced, it can be part of any part of the request. There's %K and %V. %K is when you substitute a key, and V is a value. And joiner, it's about how parameters are joined between themselves. Let's consider it on two examples. In example one, we see that parameters are passed to JSON, but they're passed in the user object.
Инструментов не сразу можно
You can't really understand immediately how you can find other
моего инструмента можно добавить
parameters in the user instrument if you're using a different tool. But with my tool, you can just add %S to the user
именно в этот объект.
object, and this way the utility will be substituting the parameters right to this object. And let's consider another example when the parameters are passed usually through get, but also as an object this time. So we see that the parameters are being passed
Значение поля объекта
as
в квадрате.
the values of the user object. So in square brackets, user role equals admin. So in this case, you can do this kind of parameter template. User %K equals %V. So in the square brackets,
Значение
the name of the parameters will be substituted, and after the equal sign, its value. And as a joiner, we use
просто подставить
the and symbol as a parameter.
параметров и все
And then you can see how you substitute all parameters using this
какие есть планы на будущее.
pattern. Plans for the future. For the future, I would like to expand the functionality to add the definition of supported methods such as get, post, and put, and also a definition of supported content. Also, I'd like to add a check against basic vulnerabilities, automatic check for XSS, automatic search for misconfiguration, and also cache. So that's basically it. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Отлично. Спасибо большое за доклад.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. I have several questions.
Расскажи,
The first one, tell us please, how
помогает
your tool
исследовать,
helps you in day-to-day research, and what vulnerabilities have you found with it?
помогает тем,
So basically, how you work and what your tool helps you do that. Thank you for the question. I've recently tested an app, so you could look up data about another IT company, but this vulnerability had a weak impact because it could be difficult to use. But using my tool, I could find that you can use just a regular numeral ID, so you can increment this ID and learn data about any company. So this value, this numeric parameter, I found it using my utility. Also, I could mention different XSS type utility because quite often developers leave some parameters that are reflected in the page without filtering special symbols on the page, from the page.
на Rust.
Another question. If I remember, your utility is written in Rust. Can you be more detailed about that? How does it impact your development process and perhaps the performance of this tool? Yes, of course. It produces a positive effect on performance. The biggest reason why I chose Rust is because it finds a lot of errors right in the compilation phase. So it's much more difficult to make an error that will stay in the program. So that's the reason why I chose Rust.
И уменьшает
Also, you said that the utilities of this class usually take parameters, gradually reducing them to the only one that changes the behavior of the website.
тебя.
Do you use the dichotomy method?
Ты
So, for instance, you have 100 parameters.
поменял
You see that
поведение.
some of them has changed the behavior of the site. You divide them by half, you disable half of them, take the second one, look if this changed. And so this dichotomy method can allow you very quickly to achieve
На этот
the parameters that really change the behavior. Yes, indeed, this is exactly the method that I use.
запрашиваются.
So I choose the number by 2, and 2 parts of this list are being called one by one, and we'll see which one of them has made changes. Thank you.
Вот
And the last question.
немножко похоже
Your utility
фазер.
looks a bit like Phaser
И
that tests a certain system, and then
сообщает тебе, что фазер
a detector of some unwanted behavior tells you that the phaser has found a wrong path in the software. But the detector in phaser usually includes a lot of additional checks.
просто то, что
Your tool, does it use just what the website gives you back, or some additional parameters? For instance, the response time, how quickly the website has loaded, or some debugging information in the process of making the connection. Do you have anything like this? No. Currently, I only use the response, the response status, the headers, and the content. But yes, I had an idea adding
Ответа
parameters
в будущем
based on the response types. And I think, yes, in the future, I will have this functionality added. That's cool. Then you'll become very different from any similar products. Thank you. Hello. I also have a couple of questions. Question 1. From the moment of idea to the current moment, how much time did it take to work on this project? I don't know what to say. It's a very old project.
самим пользователям
It stayed private for a very long time.
начально,
I was using it myself, but I think I spent about 3 months
то есть
working several hours a day from the first idea to development. Yeah, I think several months. Several months up to the implementation of the current level of implementation.
функционал
Well, not exactly. Now it includes a lot of additional functionality, but the base tool was made in several months. And the second question, let's dream about the future. What's the further development path for the project? How do you see it? What would you like to implement based on what you have now,
ну,
all the way to becoming a global overreaching tool? Yes, as I said, I would like to add some additional functionality that's not exactly about the search for parameters. For instance, the detection of methods that the app supports, or discovering vulnerabilities of several types, to take a look how the server responds, the origin header,
кэша это
and cache posting.
сохранят ли страницу
To see if the page persists any value of the parameter
уязвимостей.
that could be used later to exploit some vulnerabilities. Okay, so it's in the foreseeable future, but let's say 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So you keep working on the project, and so what is going to happen next? Like for an enterprise
Больших идей у меня нет.
version. Well, I haven't had any such ideas as yet. I was just writing it as my own personal project. I didn't expect it to grow that much, so I don't have any exact plans of the scale for the future. Thank you. Got it. 2 more questions. Question 1.
сканер или
As in any good web scanner or a phaser, I think
этот,
that
этот запуск никогда
with parameters being added, this will never stop. You launch it, it brute forces, and the number of combination is growing. Have you thought about any optimization?
Используется лист какой-то параметров.
Well, it's not just remuneration. I use a list of parameters. No, I wasn't just considering any optimizations.
Типа, если
Because yes, there is an optimization there. So if the value of some parameters is reflected in the page, this parameter is being found immediately, and the list is not split in two as normally. But other than that, all the possible optimization, I think, have been implemented. Don't have any further ideas how can be implemented further. All right, here's an idea. Add lists, make them generative, and do it using an NLP model that will predict the most probable value of the parameters for this site. It does work. Yes, I also have had some ideas like that to add those lists that are generated themselves. Yes, I'll consider that in the future. Great. And another question, it's more organizational. Are you writing this project alone? Do you get commits from or PRs from other people or some ideas? How do you manage relationships with the community? Because you have quite a lot of stars on Git, so there's an interest to it. Yes, I think that 99% of the project is my own work, but other than that, there's been several more people who made several pull requests. Other than that, there aren't too many people who have shown the desire to work on projects. So I don't have quite a lot of organizational problems. Would you like to get such problems so that more people will get involved? Yes, of course. I would like other people to also get involved in development. So all the viewers do it. Question. So thank you. Thank you.
И следующий доклад Игорь
And the next presentation is from Igor Chernenko, who will tell us about he wrote GNOME.
Так, рад приветствовать.
Okay, happy to welcome all the viewers. I would like to tell about the project that I've been working on for the past 1.5. Yes, it's a desktop request for GNU Linux. A few words about myself. Before that, I'm 15 years old. I'm from St. Petersburg. My main OS is GNU Linux. I'm also interested in programming, information security. I program mostly on Python and C++. Of late, I've got interested in mobile development for Swift. So why I decided to start working on this project? Firstly, a modern environment of the desktop environment, such as GNOME, consumes too much resources. So we can encounter a situation where we've just launched a system and 2 gigabytes of the random access memory has been used. It's not so good. And that they offer too little opportunities for customization. So you have to spend quite a lot of time working on that. So the purpose was to create a very well customized environment for the desktop, but so it could be that have a steep learning curve. As I said, I've been working on this project for more than a year. I wrote in C++ and Qt. I now the basic applets are ready. So I have the app menu, window list, launcher, keyboard layout. Also, we use dbus. We have another app to set up the panel. We have a config, but also a graphical application for the setting up. So it's not to start the panel after settings are changed. We run dbus and relaunch the panel. I also have an applet to manage the
И недавно в предпоследнем релизе
also in the penultimate release, 1.5, we presented a system tray that also works with the help of the dbus.
Также
I would also like to discuss the vulnerabilities of different desktop environments. I would like to mention three most well-known. That's the null pointer dereference.
но в своем проекте я
In
решил
my project, I decided to use C++ and Qt because I couldn't find a normal build of Rust Qt, but the purpose was to use Qt to start.
в дальнейшем, возможно,
But looking forward, I think we'll migrate to Rust.
не буфера. И третья проблема — это инъекция
And also the buffer overflow. We often see this in the file manager.
вызовов в систему. Мы стараемся в проекте избегать таких вызовов. Это не всегда, однако, получается, потому что не всегда есть библиотеки, которые позволяют, которые дают функционал, который нужен. Но я стараюсь избегать этого, потому что, получается, можно точку с запятой в конце дописать и еще выполнить какую-то команду в терминале, что как бы не очень хорошо. По тестам потребления оперативной памяти мое окружение рабочего стола имеет наименьшее потребление ресурсов, то есть 170 мегабайт. Это получилось на виртуальной машине все. Вот. Конечно, еще все впереди, но я всегда стараюсь оптимизировать как можно больше всегда.
And of course, a lot is coming, but I'm doing my best to fix this. And on the plans for the future, I'm writing my own file manager to support the desktop applications, same as many applications do. Notifications daemon that will show the notifications through free desktop. And my plan is also to create a window manager. Maybe it will be other than all the work that was done previously, but I think it makes sense because we now get the list of windows from Care Windows system, and this is not convenient to constantly do. And I would like to pass this data through debug. Dock panel support is also planned. KVM. I'm not sure we will succeed in this, but at least window manager for Xbox. Dock panel functionality is coming. Display manager and login manager and icon, because we found out that some of the components are not compatible. We need to use the universal names for the icons, and this is a huge problem. With this, that's all, and thank you very much for your attention.
Не уходи, пожалуйста. Да, у нас к тебе вопросы. Во-первых, очень крутой результат.
We have a question for you. First of all, thank you very much. Great result, great work, and it really impresses me. You say you are 15 and you are dedicating time to this for a year and a half. What have you started with? Maybe you had some simpler projects. What is your way in development? Yeah, of course, we had such a project, console utilities, or some easy graphic games, like trainers for mental math. I use C#, but then when I switched to Linux, I understood Python and used Python a lot. Then when I got PyQt and went to C++, of course, it was much easier for me after the PyQt. Great.
Кружке по программированию или...
You learned in some special school for programming, or you have friends? Mostly I do it myself. I learn myself. And I learn the programming languages. Great. Thanks. First of all, for your development, my question is, what is your development process? Because this system is complex. It has a lot of components, and definitely to support the high quality level, you need to test it manually. Testing this is requires a lot of time. How do you do it? Answer. Well, usually I do manual testing. I have my plans for the next release. I try to implement what I want, and of course, a lot of debug and the C++ and pointers. There are a lot of seg faults and hard to find them. And of course, I have some bugs in releases that I fix whenever I find them. Every release takes about 2 weeks. Do you have some CI or some script that help you to simplify testing? Or there are some people that test your release? No, I test everything myself. I have my script for building this all and installing. I have the installer project that compiles and copies all the files that are needed, and it simplifies both for the users and for the testing. Great. I saw you have some contributors and pull requests, so some people are contributing. I have some wishes, no pull requests yet, but I would definitely like to have some. Great. And one more question. Did you try to build your project with Sanitize?
Не знаю, есть ли у тебя сейчас хоть какой-то...
And maybe you have some fuzzing now. And if not, how do you foresee the attack perimeter for your system and where it can be vulnerable to untrusted input? There are two places. First of all, to install the keyboard layout and launch the panel. And in config, we have the languages listed, comma separated, and as it's imported through SKB map, I suppose you can add some other commands here. But I do my best to get rid of it, and thus the window manager idea. I think this can help me implement the needed functionality. Question: the dbus traffic, do you consider it trusted or not? Your application of your desktop, does it consider the code as potentially malware? Well, I only use it to interact between applications or relaunch the panel, and thus I don't foresee any hard consequences, but I plan to expand it and add some buttons to use it. So I plan to really think of how to analyze the debug traffic, whether it's a trusted app or not. Question, but even with a trusted app, the user interacts with it somehow, some input. So if the application is vulnerable and it's compromised, it can issue some wrong traffic, saying, for example, give me the data from the other application, or give me the messenger data, or contact list data.
Я вижу...
Great. I do want to say that
Когда ты начинаешь свой путь в системном программировании,
there's a known thing that when you start your way in programming, you need to start with your own operating system, your own toy core. You went from the other side. You started with your own window manager, your own desktop environment, and
потому что
I think it's potentially more difficult because working with hardware is very predictable, but now you're in a very complex system, interacting with the core, with the user space, and the job you're doing is really, really complex. So I do wish you all the best. Thank you. Other questions?
Ты упоминал как раз про
You mentioned different vulnerabilities types, and the trust question has arisen from it. Because there's a lot of interacting entities. Do you use some static or dynamic methods for vulnerability testing, or some organizational method modeling? Answer: well, typically, if we have memory leakage, the compiler will warn us. But currently, no, and it's mostly, I count on my attentiveness and debug. Yeah, but this is how all the bugs and vulnerabilities arise, right? Yeah. So the recommendation here is there's a lot of free analyzers for C and C++, like PVS Studio, and run it because it sometimes gives you a lot of surprising discoveries. And if you claim security, it's super important also for the stability of the system. You need to know what you trust and what you don't trust, because if you have a threat model, you can just use the data flow to say that, hey, this is not my source. This can affect me, and this is how I need to reduce the influence of my story. Yeah, you can use dbot to send any request, right? Yeah, but you cannot trust it then. You need to somehow filter it. Well, we have only one application that works with a panel, and the only thing you can do is reread the config to apply the setting. A personal question to you.
Где бы ты хотел
What is your professional dream? Where would you like to go? What would you like to do? You have great competencies. So, answer. Well, I'm very much interested in iOS development, and that is probably the area where I would like to put myself to. But I would like to be a developer, security developer, or something else, maybe tester, DevOps. What is your ambition? Well, it's cybersecurity or iOS development. I think that system programming is more for my personal project like this. Thank you. Thank you very much. One question. One more question. Do you know some users of your manager besides yourself? Yeah, number of people have sent me wishes. Definitely, they wanted some stuff implemented, and they found some issues. So yeah, I do know a number of them. But question: do you want to have more of them? Definitely yes. What do you think then you can do to grow the number of users? Well, I think maybe use more promotion, put more attention to promoting the project, because it's not currently in the repositories, and thus it's definitely the factor that does not make it widely used. Yeah, actually, the recommendation is to look for partners, like some distributor that would want this lightweight manager and talk to the developer, asking them, what do you need to use this as the main one or one of the base? Well, answer. We mostly use OpenBox as an example for
Как основной оконный менеджер. Ну, то есть можно...
as a main window manager. We use it with other window managers, Queen and Flexbox. But I mostly use OpenBox personally. But in the future, we will be creating a window manager that will solve a lot of issues. One more question. You work alone on the project. Are there any thoughts of gathering a team to lead it, and maybe by just giving tasks to other people develop the project? Answer. Well, actually, I prefer for now to work alone on the project, but it's not enough. One person is not enough. And so, yeah, I agree. The window manager will definitely be the hardest part, but I'll do my best to manage. Question, but if you have a team and manage it to scale, does it seem like a reasonable way? Yeah, agree. Thank you.
Ну что, спасибо большое.
Well, thanks a lot to our participants,
Чтобы
their presentations. I would like the members of the jury to come on stage and say a couple of words about the project that were presented, the ones that were nominated, but the guys couldn't come.
Сказали в своих вопросах, но
A lot of feedback was given in our questions, but adding some comments and recommendations, I think, will be very useful. Alexander?
Добрый день, Александр Попов, Positive Technologies. Для
Hello, Alexander Popov, Positive Technologies. Sergey has invited me
меня
to be member of the jury, and this is my first experience this year. And I'd like to say a couple of words about the contest. I think it's super important, and this is a turnkey initiative because the previous presenter, with his experience, showing that you can create really wonderful things and grow. But if you work in a team, or at least share what you have created with someone else, this speeds up the whole process and gives you the inspiration. And the most important part for me in this contest is the inspiration I got looking at the young guys starting their professional career. And of course, I got a lot of energy from the story because
семестр
for many years I work in different universities to read some lectures because my friends invite me to. And I do it with great pleasure because at some point in my career, in the beginning of my career, I had people who gave me the inspiration, talked to me about cybersecurity, open source, Linux, other things. And they
давать это сейчас.
brought me that, gave me that inspiration, and I think I need to pass it to the young guys. We've reviewed more than 200 applications. Many of them are not that good, just people publishing some university work on GitHub, but there are diamonds that we chose, and we were really, really glad to see them because the guys do want to create something. They work, they spend a lot of energy. And I like the phrase of the world being driven by the interest, and we move forward really because people being interested in something. So this contest was, for me, some extra miles, additional work, but it supported me and it gave me the feeling that it's very important for us in such hard times to support the young guys and see them moving forward. Thank you very much to the guys who have presented. There's a lot of first presentations I saw, and they were really good. So from Positive Technologies, we have some gifts for you. We have Positive Technologies Club of the desktop games fans, and we have Munchkin on cybersecurity, like choosing roles, pen tester, threat hunter, developer, and building your character throughout the game by
Желаем
conquering the vulnerabilities or delegating. And my suggestion to you is that you do work and you do develop in your area of interest. Well, you study in the university, there's always, an opportunity to go, sell phones on the market and earn some money via some other jobs. But if you put your time in developing your core skills, this will bring you a lot of experience and make you a valuable specialist. So such contest and Code for Everyone initiative that looks very much like Google's initiative with a mentor and the student solving some task for the open source and getting some experience, they are a real way to success. Thank you very much.
Батурин Владимир, Бизон.
Vladimir Baturin from Bizon. Guys, you are really great. I was happy to see that you are growing and developing. The direction of your growth is correct, and you will, if you keep moving along this way, you will be doing great. The contest is a very good one. It's very much tailored to helping the people who have some ideas, helping them share it with the community, not just, sit and develop it without the other people, but to really launch it and to show what they can do. So I'm sure this is a great thing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ну что, на этом мы заканчиваем, чтобы передать слово.
With that, we'd like to conclude our session and pass the microphone to the next speakers, to everybody working with universities and schools. This was the finals for the contest of school and student, university students contest with a professional jury getting their additional score for Unified State exam and the possibility to present in Positive Hack Days. This is over, but this will continue next year. Thank you. Bye-bye.